Hey, what's going on, people? I wanted to do a video today because I wanted to talk about how a, how debt collection is not what you think it is. And my fragrance today is going to be Xerjoff Alexander II. And I want to go into this because a lot of times when people get debt collection calls, they think that it's someone calling them to, uh, that they, because they owe a debt. And it's really the exact opposite. The company actually owes the so-called debt to you. And what happens is through you not contacting with a company or setting up a promise to pay, as I said, that you can take a promise to pay and use it to pay a debt, alleged debt. It's just settling the accounting with the so-called financial institution. So when a collection agency is calling you, people are under this this under this it technically is aphasia. You know what I'm saying? People are under this belief that they owe alleged debts. And when I try to break this to people, it's very hard for, some people to understand this and break those mental chains because it really is you're being duped. Um, but yeah, we'll get into some of the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act and why I'm telling you that it doesn't fully apply to you, because some of the way that some of these so-called debt collectors use this, they use loopholes in this act, and really you're really funding businesses. So they'll say, that the FDCPA only applies to collection of debt incurred by a consumer primarily for personal family. Okay, that's a presumption. Okay, when you get a credit card, it's a presumption that you're using it for personal and family aspects. That's why certain credit cards will restrict your usage, but really you're using it to fund businesses. Okay, so I'm going to get into this. And so a lot of times, when you receive a communication with a from a debt collector, so this is what they constitute as consumer uh, communication. So, for communications with a consumer or third party in connection with the collection of a debt, the term consumer is defined to include the borrower's spouse, parent, if the borrower is a minor, guardian, executor, or administrator. Okay. When, where, and whom communication is permitted. Communication with consumers. A debt collector may not communicate with a consumer at any unusual time, generally before 8 a.m. or after 9 p.m. in the consumer's time zone, or at any place that is inconvenient to the consumer, unless the consumer or a court of competent jurisdiction. If people remember, I told you about competency. Some people are, in my comment sections, they don't understand what I'm talking about. Competency. Why you challenge a court's competency? Listen what it says. A court of competent jurisdiction, okay, has given permission for such contracts. A debt collector may not contact the consumer at his or her place of employment. So if you're self-employed and or you have a business at home and you're listed as a employee, right? If you're listed as an employee of your business and they call you at home, they can actually run the risk of being a FDCPA, doing an FDCPA violation. Okay. If the collector has a reason to believe the employer prohibits such communication, if the debt collector knows that the consumer has retained an attorney to handle the debt and can easily ascertain the attorney's name and address, all contacts must be with the attorney unless the attorney is unresponsive or agrees to allow direct communication with the consumer. Okay. Now, I'm going to get to you, I'm going to explain to you that they are not calling you to collect debt. They're calling you so you can disperse the funds on the account. All right. So I need you to understand what an obligor is to an obligation. Okay. And once you understand this, you'll understand everything. Um, so we'll go over to that and I'll explain it to you. Okay. Okay. I hate when I look. So what they're trying to do is obtain their fees, and I'm going to show you what's really going on. They're collecting their fees. They're not collecting the full principal and interest of the debt. They're collecting their fees. Well, they're trying to collect the interest, but we'll get into that. Okay. An obligor is a person who is legally bound to another. Debt holders are the most common types of obligors. Listen to what I'm saying. Debt holders. So a person who is allegedly holding your debt is obligated to you. It's not in reverse. It's they are obligated to you. So, however, in addition to the required repayment of interest and principal, many holders of corporate debt are also contractually required to meet other requirements. Now, let's go see what an obligor and an obligee is. This is why I try to tell you guys like about child support and stuff like that, right? So look, the definition of an obligor, okay? An obligor is an individual who owes a benefit or payment to another person, such as child support, alimony, or a payment of on a loan. The individual receiving the benefit is known as the obligee, and they benefit from the terms of the contract. Okay, now you might think that says that you owe it to somebody. Now, if the person is considered a donor, which the obligor would be, then the donee can be liable to the donor, and I'm going to show you that also. This is what I'm talking to when I'm saying these things to you, right? So I'm going to show you how that most of the time you have debt collection in reverse. It's actually in reverse. So this is why I showed you the Power of Appointment Act. So if you understand the Power of Appointment Act, then you'll understand what I'm saying. Okay, I'm trying to get through some of this because uh, so here we go. And I'm not a fan of using lawyers' law firms information, but if it's good information, I'll go with it. So, donee liability for unpaid gift taxes. Who pays when the is in a trust? Many sophisticated estate plans involve lifetime sales or gratuitous transfers to trust of assets without a readily determinable value. If the IRS takes issue with the transferor's valuation of transferred property, it may assert that the transferor owes an additional gift tax. However, if the transferor, meaning the donor, is no longer in a position to pay the tax, or he simply refuses to pay the tax, the IRS can turn to the recipient of the gift, the donee, under Section 6324 of the Internal Revenue Code, the IRC. The IRC Section 6324B imposes personal liability on a donee for the unpaid gift tax, including interest and penalties of the donor up to the amount of the gift she received. A donee is liable not just for the unpaid tax in respect of her gift, but for unpaid tax on all gifts made by the donor. That means once you are the donor in all of these transactions, because the obligor is the donor. That means you're giving a gift. When you go into a bank and you sign a promissory note, or when you go into a dealership and sign a promissory note, you're the donor. Then once they do their conversion and transfer the note and turn it into turn a non-negotiable instrument into a negotiable instrument, because all promissory notes or pretty much mortgages are on they're non-negotiable. They turn it into a negotiable instrument. Technically, it's non-negotiable, but it is considered a donation because you give it to them without contingencies. This is the thing that I'm trying to get you to understand. So when a debt collector is calling you, they're not calling you to make you pay a debt. They're calling you so they can disperse payment of a debt. Now, I know that's crazy. Now, if some people have some questions, I might do a course on this and explain it better. But I wanted to just do a quick thing to tell you that collection calls are not always what you think they are. They're they're actually a way for you to complete your obligation and to allow the disbursement of payment. And that's why they close down your accounts. That's why they ruin your credit, because they're really it's a credit profile. So they're not putting debt on your credit profile. They're just putting it on your credit profile that you failed to disperse your obligation. So everybody who is teaching you how to clean your credit, they don't even know what they're talking about. Everybody who's teaching you business credit don't know anything about what they're talking about. Most people on the internet who are speaking on this stuff don't even understand it. Your job is not to use the FTCPA to clean off your credit. I'm gonna go into this one day, but I have videos on this. I have private classes. I got all kinds of stuff, and it's available for purchase because a lot of this game is not on the internet, and I prefer to keep my stuff private because if once you listen to some of my videos, your view on everything is going to change. It's going to change because when people are teaching you how to get clean stuff off your credit, they're not even understanding why your credit exists, why these credit reporting agencies, who are not bureaus, even though they're not federally supported agencies, why they exist and what they're doing. They're acting as an intermediary third party. So a lot of you guys are filing FCRA violations and going at the credit reporting agencies, and you're doing it all wrong. They're not your enemy. They ain't did nothing. It's your fault. But until you understand what's going on, it's going to be hard. But yeah, when a collection agency is calling you, they're calling you to disperse payment. They're not calling you for you to pay them. There's nowhere in the contract that it says that you have to pay them out of your labor credits. You choose to do that. So you listen to people on the internet, pay your bills. What do you mean pay your bills? How you gonna teach somebody how to pay their bills? No, you're not. So shut up. Look, I'm just telling y'all this so y'all can stop listening to these people on the internet and start doing your own research. If you are an obligor, you are a donor, and you can make it to where the donee, who is the recipient of your obligation, has to pay the taxes. That's all it is. You see what I'm saying? So if you understand that, you should be good. I'm out.